Hi guys, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Elson.
Yeah, just checking if the chat and everything is working. I see a lot of people have already started joining. And yeah, everyone, welcome to today's session. We'll officially start in around, say, 12:05 or so. Until then, we'll just set the stage and make sure everything is ready. So today's session is going to be especially an interesting one, given that we have Manish today. So every month, we host at ScaleX a couple of virtual sessions and some offline mixers. And during these sessions, we get experts like Manish himself to share their experience, their expertise with other founders as well. Um, and I think today's topic, in fact, is especially interesting given that it's strategic sales and the fact that so many startups, especially in today's competitive market, are being insisted to focus on revenue, sales, profitability. So for all the I think feel free to interact. Like these sessions are especially closed room. It's a place where you can candidly ask your questions. And I think Manish, I went through his, I mean, got a sneak peek into the presentation, and I'm sure you guys will already love it because there's a lot of good frameworks in it. There's a lot of good examples and also a lot of cool stories. Anyway, I don't want to spill the beans too much. I think Manish, I'll let him do that. So guys, just right now you can go grab some water and coffee. And in another 2 minutes, we will start. Manish will hop on and he will share his introduction. All right, Manish, are we good to start?
Yes, Elson, I'm good to go.
Over to you, Manish.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Elson, for this lovely introduction and for having me on for this session. It's a pleasure, and I remember all my interaction that I've had with you guys in the recent past, and the insight that you all gave. So wonderful. Thank you everybody for joining this session with me today. I'm excited, and I hope I'm able to add some value to your already existing knowledge that you have. But sales is something very interesting. It keeps evolving. There's no fixed rules, or while what we read in textbook is a lot of things which happens on ground, and there's a lot of common sense that comes in play, which we call also a strategy. And I think strategy is nothing more than the common sense that we really apply. So with that, let me just quickly share my deck. And what I would prefer is that I'm happy to have a more interactive session. That's how I like doing even on a stage. But since considering that we are on a virtual session, we may have a limited opportunity to really talk. So please, if you have questions, please do keep adding up on the chat, and let me quickly start this. Great. So let me just begin with what does business means to us, and does it just happen or we make it happen? And that's how my opening slide would be. And I believe that we make it happen. We create those scenarios, we create those impact, we understand the needs, and then we make it happen. But before I really jump into the details of it, let me quickly take you through some of the introduction that I would like to do. And therefore, this is about me. And I come with about 24 plus years of experience, work experience. I have been a seasoned strategic business leader in the past. And interestingly, I come from various industries. I come from a hospitality industry. Then I have been part of travel technology. And then I have been part of a transport SaaS solution company. And now I'm into the most happening, I would say, business line that we see. And need of the hour is the drive towards sustainability and ESG, and so I'm part of a company which is heading or taking head on with the electric vehicles that we are using in the market. I have been part of various companies, and one of my most fruitful and encouraging session or season has been when I was with Wire.com. I got a single hand opportunity to create a business channel from scratch, and we could scale it to about 3.5 billion of turnovers in the span of about 5 years. And so a lot of I would say entrepreneur by heart and sales guy by profession. That's how I have been. I also been a part of a startup where I was a co-founder, and yeah, we really picked it up. It was into a corporate travel uh, line of business, and then I exited later on. But the kind of learning that you go through when you part of startups is hugely very, very different than what you get in an incumbent company. So I have been very, very lucky to actually have opportunities to really build business, work with a whole lot of people across different genres, and working during the pre-smartphone era and working after smartphone era, and the kind of learning that I come across. I would give a little talk on that also in the subsequent flight. At this point in time, I am part of Team Lithium. Lithium Urban is a electric mobility solution company, a company which has really done great initiatives in the market, has added about 50,000 metric ton of carbon abatement has been done from the time that they have been operating. Work with about 3,000 plus vehicles that they are running in the market, and making a huge impact and make huge change to the overall scenario of employee transportation. And the way lithium has been driving has been quite different, bringing a lot of transparency and using a lot of technology, understanding the customer requirement, taking it forward. So with that, also you'll notice a lot of pictures which you'll see around. These all pictures are something that I have clicked and I am using it here. This picture that you see is about all the business cards that I would have collected 5 years back from the time I started in sales. And those were the era when digital was not there and more of exchange of business cards were there. But what I learned from this is that my first journey was with hospitality industry, and what you learn here is the basics of service sales, the way you really interact with people, the way you understand the customer requirement, the body language. This was the period between 1998 to 2010, and the period where the smartphones was getting evolved. Data was more of business card than a digital format, but then we saw the changes happening around. Then I moved to travel technology company, which is a platform-based service solution company, where you could do ticketing and you can do a lot of retail business could take forward, and that's exactly what we did. And that was a period where I understood the value of networking, relationship in the market across, not just in India, but even in national market with various stakeholders, various suppliers and vendors. So supply management, supply chain is something that you really pick up in businesses like that. And the cloud really helped us to scale it across beyond India and going to other Southeast Asian countries. Then I also got an opportunity to work with a SaaS transport solution company, which is Move Sync Technology. One of the finest experience that I had, because of the fact that we could get a lot of understanding on automation and digitization of mobility, and it required a lot of design thinking kind of approach, because you really need to understand what customer wants, where is it, what is the pain point that they were having, who are the stakeholders involved in that, and then give them a solution which is more customized. So what you have, and then customize it according to requirement and take it forward. And now I am part of electric mobility and tech solution, which helping companies to achieve the ESG goals and make those important disclosures about their race to net zero. So that's about me and the journey so far that I've been having. Now, let me just quickly move to okay. Just hold on. So what I'm going to cover today is something to do with, I'm going to quickly touch upon sales and what it means to us. I've called an approach called hoof approach. I'm going to do a little talk about hoof approach. I'm going to talk about some of the frameworks, which is more to do with design thinking approach in sales that I quite often keep using it in all my interactions. I'm also going to talk about a little on business plan canvas, which I use more often now in terms of any challenges that I face across with regard to business planning, and a little summary on whatever we do outside is actually starts from within, and the quick facts that I will talk about. So with that, let me just quickly jump into it. So from a sales perspective or strategy perspective, what is it, those names that pop up in your mind? And this here, what I'm talking about are the market, the process, the product, segments, numbers, objectives, egos of people involved, competitive response, vision, goals, and BHAG. So let me just quickly talk about BHAG, which has really taken a lot of prominence, especially in the startup era. That how we see, and BHAG means big, hairy, audacious goals. This is not similar to vision because there is a audacity that is required when you're talking about BHAG, which means you really call it out in a single line and say that in next 10 years, I want to have my product selling on the moon, let's say. Or, you are talking about like, I look forward to have a completely net zero world. That is how UN is trying to look at from a ESG point of view or from a sustainability point of view, making those very, very audacious goals that we find not easy to achieve, not easy to something that you look at, but there is a clear purpose and vision for the direction of the company that you're calling it out, which also makes it very simple that you align your team. Your team is driven towards the purpose that you're looking at, and you're making it extremely hairy. And when you call it hairy here, and I come across a lot of people who ask, why does it called as hairy? Hairy, the reason why we call it is because it is not clear. There are too many loose ends. And when it has got too many loose ends, there is a lot of research which is going on. So a lot of research activities are basically having loose ends. You don't know where it is really, it will head on to. There are a lot of open threads in it. And that's why we call it as the hack here. So in all of this activity that you're doing and whatever we are crunching, the number crunching that we are doing, the process that we are following, the segment that we are dividing, in the center of it comes your customer. And that is where the entire business really lies in. So customer centricity plays a very, very significant role in any business that you're doing, because without customer, you don't have really sales happening or business happening or strategy. Every strategy that you see is about towards getting those customer footfalls. Even the valuation happened basis how the scale that you have achieved with regard to the customer acquisition that you have done. But to meet the customer and to have your organization running, what is also very critical is the culture of the company. And how do you define that? Now, each company would have its own culture, but there is a certain defined process that you follow, which sets your team and sets your drive towards your customer as well, following a certain set of rules and patterns that you follow. And in most cultures, while we believe that the company drives the culture gets created by the employees, by the people who are involved in the organization, and then from the best practices comes the culture that it imbibes, and then that holds everybody together. And that's a glue for a company to really succeed. So that's on what we'll look at, and we'll go a little deeper into these terms. And so I move to the next slide, and what I'm going to discuss is what do sales mean to us, and why is it so important? It is important because sales comprises of various activities. It comprises of your clients, the selling that you're doing, the communication, how you're going to be communicating with the customer or in the market, how you're identifying the needs, what are the aspirations of the customer, are you able to generate that need from the consumer, are you able to influence their buying behavior, and what are those activities that you're doing to acquire and grow and nurture your customers and hold them together with you. So that's where the loyalty will come in, and your revenue really then takes a precedence out here. How is your growth happening on year, and how are you able to repeat the selling pattern with the same set of customer? So thereby, at one side, you are increasing your customer base, and on the other side, you also ensuring that you're not losing your customer. And that's a kind of a challenge when you are especially in a B2C setup. But in a B2B, and since I have been a part of a lot of B2B companies in the past, where the focus has been more of enterprise customers, B2B is is quite different from what you see around B2C. So you need to hold your customers very, very closely. You need to understand their need. You need to really work around the requirement that they have, create those insights, communicate with them, have those conversations through the apps, through the email, through the website that you have, through the social media that you're using. So basically holding the attention of the customer, and holding the attention of a customer is not really very easy as such. So, but what the principle that I follow and I believe is that Sales solves everything. And if you have any challenge in your business, whatever you're looking at, whatever area you are looking at, eventually the sale is not happening, it is not really solving. So you might have a very, very good product that you have designed, you have a great solution, but you're not able to really communicate or take it to the market, and there's no sales happening. Eventually, it doesn't really flies. So if for anything to really grow, and for a product to really prosper, and for the business to really grow, your people to grow, sales has to happen. And for that sales, once it happens, it solves all the problem that a company, I wouldn't say problem, but I would say it solves a lot of areas, concerns. So it's sales solves everything. And that's why I think what sales means to us is comprising all of these activities that I'm calling it out here, and ensuring that the sales is able to generate those revenue, give those satisfaction to the employees, to the founders, to the stakeholders, to the VCs. And once the numbers are really growing up, that makes a huge impact. So sales solves everything here. And what I also believe is, when you're talking about sales, a lot of us get into this discussion about sales means, okay, I am selling a product and my job is done. No, and we are in an aggressive stance to ensure that we cover more customer, more market, take it as much as possible, just sell and come out. Selling is not just about giving the product and coming out of it. What I have seen, especially in a B2B kind of business, is that what is the transformation that your product or solution is really adding? The transformation that is visible, the transformation that is making an impact on the experience of the customer, the transformation that is making impact to the process of the customer. For example, if you look at employee transportation as such, or if you look at old days of travel booking, you were doing a lot of manual activities. You're going to a travel agency, making a booking, you were doing a manual rostering, you're doing a manual trip sheets and giving to the driver, and driver was like really taking it forward. But today, with the digitization and automation, when these solutions come in and when you deploy these solutions at any of the customer side, you immediately see the transformation coming. The customer has a very, very different response to them. So it shift from a manual to a automation completely has a striking effect, and that impacts both the employee satisfaction part. Your entire administration becomes much easier, transparent, easy. You meet your compliance requirement. There are no loose ends that you really come in. So the point I would like to make here is that when you are selling, ensure that you are able to focus on the fact that what is the transformation that your product is bringing in. So you're not just showing them the product, but you're also explaining them that this is the impact that you're going to do when you're using my solution. And that impact, everybody in sales should be. And I think anybody who's into a customer facing role, whether it is a tech employee, or it is a infosec guy, or it is a sales guy, or a marketing, or even a POC guy, or implementation team, everybody is doing sales at in some way or other. And that is very, very critical for everybody in the company to understand as a culture that we all are here to make a difference and to make a sell. And that selling will come when we are together in it. And that's where I would say that focus on the transformation that the product brings into a customer process and experience. With that said, what is also very important is how much do you know about your market, and what is it that you're doing about the market? And that's where I'll come on the hoof approach here. But before that, and then my slide has a line, and you would have read it. It's better to have the wind at your back than in your face. And you will realize that when you go into sea, and when you're doing a really boating, or you're doing a kayaking, and or any of those activities, if you have a thrust from behind, when the waves are in your favor, you will be able to sail faster. When you are hit by the wind on your face, it takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of effort that goes in. And even this picture I had taken in one of the beaches in coastal city of Karnataka, where I saw fishermen really doing it, and the kind of planning those fishermen were doing to get this boat full of fishes onto the shore, and the activity that they were doing is something that really, really amazed me. And what I really realized that in the early morning, when the wind is against them, it is very difficult to sail through. But when the wind is behind them, they were able to make those quick flow towards the shore. So what is important here is knowing the market. What it means is the question is about odds. one has a better chance of really prospering in a market that is growing than one that is shrinking. And therefore, um, not just knowing the market is enough. Where is it going? What is it doing? The dynamics of the markets. Is it really dynamic market, or is it like a static market? Is the demand growing or not growing, or is it shrinking, or is it flatlining? It's like plateauing. You're not really seeing any growth happening, but it's just running in the same manner. And at that point in time, it's also important, what is the competition doing? Because competition is not going to sit back and wait for you to, if you are a market leader, they won't just watch you being a market leader. What is that competitive advantage that your product brings in, or your business brings in, or process brings in? And that is something that you need to constantly highlighting, talking about it through your social media, through your website, through your people, and make those impacts. And also at every point of time, it is important that, are you able to map the customer journey? What are those touch points? Are those touch points your advertisements? Are your touch point, whether your social media communications, emails? How are so? Imagine you're going into a, let's say, a showroom, let's say a Zara showroom, and you are started in the morning from home, and you wanted to go into Sunday nice morning, and you started going towards this mall, and you saw a Zara hoarding, and you see some sale happening, or you see some really nice looking uh, suit showing there. So you start getting affected by these sites that you, because you're going for a shopping and you're seeing these are the touch point that you come in. So when you enter the mall, and then you're seeing again a couple of more boards of Zara, and then you see there are different kind of option that one has. There's a ladies section, there's a gen section, and you have a whole lot of options. Probably you would have made those assumptions already, that today I'm going to go to Zara because that has been really hitting you. And then when you enter the showroom, you are able to, you will see those ads outside, you will see those people, the way the employees are going to react or welcome you into the store. These are your customer touch points, and these touch points make an impact onto the customer when they are looking at purchasing, making those purchases. Now, if you have to look at from a B2B point of view, what are those word of mouth promotion that is happening? Are there users who can talk for you? Are there user experiences that can really, which can become a case study? Have you been able to share those case study? What are those critical changes that you brought in once your solution was adopted by that customer? So you can always use those as factors to take it forward. Now, coming to the hoof approach, I hope if you have questions, you're going to be putting in the chat, but let me quickly summarize this slide, and then I will be happy to answer a few of your questions. Now, hoof, what does hoof means? H means historic growth, that what you will see. Uh, you will be wondering why it is double O and when there is double D written there. Take that double D as semicircle of O, and because you cannot call it HDDF, so I'm calling it a hoof approach, and that's what I read it, and I was very, very amazed when I read this thing about 5 years back, and the impact that it had on me, and I started deploying it in my activities whenever I was working on any of the products. So the historic growth, access how market demand has grown in the past. If you're looking at any of the product, and if you're taking it, you will see a kind of a curve that is happening. There are certain factors which is played towards this growth. What are those factors? What are those drivers, key drivers for that growth in the past? And what are those like? So primarily what you're doing with this hoof approach is market crafting. You're really crafting your market to look at, how do I now approach the future or the forecast that I'm going to make? What are those impacts that what drove those impacts? And if you look at, let's say, digital payments, what drove digital payments in India? Probably demonetization happened, and then there was solution that really picked up. People were, there were smartphones, there were good internet connectivity. All of those factors really helped in people to adopt to a solution which could become handy, and which was no cash really required, and you could still do it in a very safe environment. And so India stack growth that happened really made that impact for us. So that's an example that I can say. So it can be the key drivers in the past could be per capita income growth, population growth, general population growth specific to the market, government policies, price change, weather conditions. It could be various factors. And what drove those awareness really? It could be also, if it is a FMCG product, that was in the trend at that point in time. So those were primarily, you're talking about drivers in the past. Now, what are those drivers in the future? The drivers in the future may not be similar as the drivers of the past, which means what worked then may not work again. So you need to look at what those changes are happening. It could be economic cycle. The economic cycle is improved. The buying pattern of people are growing higher. There is greater awareness that you see in this example that you see here, and I've actually made an Excel sheet and I've taken a picture to show you here. But what this is about, the business that I'm in currently today, which is into electric vehicles, and we're looking at employee transportation or staff transportation. So in the recent past, you will see that there was growth in staff transportation. It was just going okay, like some negative. It was, and the legends are all explained to your rights. You can have a look at that. But what you also saw is that there was a growth in buyer in the recent past for electric vehicles. So the employees, companies were looking at, but the key drivers were very different at that point in time. It was more about, okay, I'm making some initiative about sustainability. There was, and the awareness for EV was just going on because of the various factors that was happening in the market. So you call those out and then give it a rating as to how much was that awareness. Was there a growth in staff transportation on EV? Let's say in the past, maybe not. But is there awareness now which has grown? So you will see that, okay, in the recent, at this point in time, I'm seeing that there has been a growth happening towards EV awareness. There is a growth happening in terms of the buyer that they are looking at. The awareness on EV is sustained, but overall impact, you will see that there's a, now the company has started deploying electric vehicles for the staff transportation. And what is also driving this is that there is a greater, and after pandemic, you will see a lot of these companies have more ESG goals that they're looking at, the sustainability initiative that they have to take. Now that has become a kind of a disclosure that they have to do it to the relevant stakeholders, and therefore companies are also taking that as a responsibility to ensure that I do everything possible to meet those environment goals, which can be from a water management to biogas to indoor air quality to electric vehicle adoption and things like that, which can have a direct impact on the sustainability measures that the companies are doing. So next few years, you'll see that there is a growth happening in, there's more greater adoption going to happen by the employees, by the companies. There is a greater acceptance by the employees itself in terms of electric vehicle. There's a greater increased awareness of electric vehicles are going to happen because of EV adoption, promotion, government policies, media coverage. There's also a reduction in internal commercial engine vehicles. There are certain set of vehicles which used to be part of the staff transportation is not there now. So they have reduced. The ESG goals are now driving a lot of companies' initiatives. So when these all factors are happening, I have been able to measure my historic growth. I have been able to look at the key drivers in the past. Then I'm able to look at the key drivers for the future. I am able to then make a forecast growth based on the influence of future drivers, forecast market demand growth. And then the hoof approach really helps you to make your planning much better, to make your forecast. But possibly again, you will have to look at a certain set of it. It may not really applicable in every, you can't look at it maybe like a global situation that, okay, if it is happening in India, this will have the same trends in across globally in the US or Europe. Or it may be happening in the US, but and will have the same impact in Singapore, may not be. So you'll have to look at which market you're really looking at, which key location, get more topographical in the approach in terms of identifying that. So hoof approach helps you to really identify these factors and then make your forecast, which will really help you to do your demand forecasting, right? So with that, I move to another framework, and this is like something which is very, very interesting that I find. And before I move to that framework, please quickly have a look at this photograph. And imagine if you're not looking at it as a photograph, but if it was a live environment, what would you be looking at here? Right? So you'll see that this is a restaurant environment. There are people sitting around, interacting, talking. There are basically you will see that there are artifacts like this stand here. There are coffee machines. There are people. There are stewards who are standing there. And by the way, this restaurant premises that you see is where I did my hotel training in 1996. as it was to look at that point of time. And I used to stand around that coffee table, the desk that you see. So that's the reason when I saw this, it just triggered my past memories, and I used this as a. What you'll also notice is that in this picture, there were no mobiles. There were no such thing to distract. So people were more into among themselves. But now change this, and in the current scenario, you will have people with mobile phones, with various activities that they would be doing, which may not be similar as what it used to be in 1996. So now let me tell you why am I showing you this picture, and what am I trying to drive here. So I call it as an AEIOU framework, and this is something that I learned during my one-year program at IIM Lucknow on digital transformation. And while it is a part of a design thinking approach, I also find it very useful when I look at it from a sales perspective, sales and marketing perspective, or strategy perspective, because you are looking at each customer, and especially in a B2B, in a business like what I am in right now, and what I was just before this company, where I was in a SaaS company also. We used to often end up looking at all the key stakeholder, what are those activities? So basically, AEIU stands for activities, environment, interactions, objects, and users. Now, what do you see? This is basically kind of framework where you look at the way people are really. It's an observation technique. It's a kind of a research activity where, let's say, your engineers are going, or your sales guys are going, and or somebody who has to give a solution is going and looking at the overall interaction, really not talking but observing it from a distance, asking what are those activities people are doing there. So if I have to look at a bus stand, and if you look at the previous picture itself, what you will see is people are talking to each other, they are eating, they are ordering, they are doing various activities, which possibly which will you can put all of them under the activity bucket to ensure that these are the activities that I noticed. And what was the environment? The environment was about the restaurant there. There was an ambience around it. People were, walking in around. There were various things which was holding their attention. They were looking around. They were seeing things. It's a five-star hotel lobby. The interaction that was happening, the interaction could be happening between the guest who was sitting at the table, or the interaction would be happening with the artifacts that is there. When I say artifacts, they would be using cutlery, crockery. They would be talking to the stewards there. They would be talking to the managers there. And what are those objects? The objects are all of those things which is holding their attention. It can be food. It can be food menu card. Now, when I'm saying all of this thing, you can frame or you can imagine of all of those activities that comes under your business activities and look at it from that angle. And who are the users? The users, you again define all of the users. The users can be the guests there. You can make it into demograph also. I mean, you can identify between people between 18 to 22 years, or 18, people or senior citizens, or businessmen, or business professionals, or the staff of the hotel. So various activities, you're just putting them everything in the bucket, and then you're looking at the body language there. So how is it helping? The AEIOU framework really helps you to identify, do your research, document the contextual inquiries that you see. It's more of an ethnographic kind of a study that you do, but it helps you to really identify, key in, zero it down on certain activities or certain market, look at from a higher level and see what are those thing which is really moving, and does my product. Or so if I have to look at it from a transportation perspective, when we go and see when there is a manual activity happening, there is a lot of chaos. People don't know which vehicle that they have to board in. The transport team is figuring out, the driver is figuring out, everybody, there's a complete kind of a chaos. And somebody would have a paper, somebody would be looking at and looking for it. There's no direction that is being shown. Now automate and digitize this whole thing. When you automate and digitize the whole thing, and you know that what kind of problem this you saw people really having at the time of, let's say, log out, you are able to address those questions or those issues, and then bring it as a solution to the customer. And then you actually show it as in your POC, and then you implement it. It just covers everything. And so you're making those attention grabber statements. You're able to find out what are those things which is really grabbing the attention of different users. And then you are able to see whether your product or a solution is able to meet the requirement or not. Are you, and then if you are able to identify these problem statement that you see, then you take it to the customer and say, make him accept to those problem statement. You are having this problem, yes, he says. So you're making them accepting it, right? So and then you take it, and then you explain them, you process this whole information and prepare a solution and go back and say, this is how we're going to be doing it, this is what we can address. And then you're taking again an acceptance from the customer, does this meet your requirement? So it's a lot of conversation that is happening, a lot of interaction that is happening, but what it gives is a solution which is really meeting the requirements of the customer, and you are able to then scale it forward one at a time, or take it across. Right? If it is work for, let's say, a bunch of a sample customer size of about let's say 5 customers, you can then take it forward to others. So basically a lot of design thinking approach in terms of knowing your customer, but then taking it forward and scaling it up across. So that's how this framework really helps, and that's the format that you see here. You can always use it. I find it very useful. I'm sure it will work for you all also. So with that, I will also show you this business model canvas that, again, I think I spoke in the opening statement also. You can download this from strategizer.com. But what it does really, it helps me is, it helps all of us. And I'll give you an example here. I have made a use case with a travel company in mind, a corporate travel company in mind. And what it primarily does is, there are some changes that you will see. There's no goal here, but I've called out a goal out here, just to have that this is one single view of a document that gives complete picture of who are your key partners, what are the key activities that you're going to do, what are the key resources you're going to use, what is the value proposition your product is going to really bring in, or solution going to bring in for the users, for the hotels, or for the supplier or the vendor that you're going to reach out to. What are the who is holding those customer relationship? Is it from the user's perspective, from the hotel perspective? What are those channels of interaction that you're doing? And if you sum it up from whatever I've been telling from beginning, everything will fall into this entire one sheet. What are the customer segment that you're looking at? The demographic, you can look at it here. What are this cost structure? What kind of cost you're really going to be incurring, and what are your revenue streams? So this, as an example, if I have to look at, is from online, let's say a technology platform which is doing corporate, doing a travel solutioning. So to be the content first interactive travel platform that integrates meta information, booking, activities, events, and community for every point of interest globally. To be the most preferred enterprise leisure travel solution. Of late, you would hear this term leisure. Leisure is a combination of business and leisure. So a lot of people who go on a business travel then take a 2-day off, and then they would do a visit. So if I have been to, let's say, Cape Town, and I'm here for a business, then I would also like to go and explore the places around Cape Town and go to the to various there are game points, there are beautiful beaches. You would like to explore all that. So now the companies are getting these kind of requirements, but where the traveler themselves say, okay, I'm going for a business, but I also need to have a leisure activity plan. So there is a platform that can really address to that. And I am trying to look at who are those key partners? What am I going to do for positioning this product? Who do I do a tie-up with? What are the key activities that I'm going to be doing? So all the details, because we're running short of time, but then what it does is it covers everything for you. And if you start practicing this, and if you start looking at, so if I now look at it from a, let's say, a business plan, or from a forecasting for my business for the next year, I can use this again for that purpose. It depends on how you want to really look at it, but it just, for me, it gives me a one single snapshot. Instead of going multiple decks, I am able to look at one snapshot and able to understand every key aspect of the business and address it accordingly, take it to the relevant stakeholder within the company, take it to the team member that is going to go out in the market, address those customers who fit in those budget, find out those key partners, your supply chain, and take things forward accordingly. So that's where I look at business plan canvas to be of really great use for what we do. With that, are there any questions? I hope I have been able to bring in a lot of perspective on the sales and strategy point of view, but I do have a couple of more slides to show, which primarily just ends this. But let me have a look at some of the questions if you may have.
There are a couple of questions on the.
Insights on B2B sales for India to world. Okay, let me just have a look at this. Any insight on B2B sales? Beyond framework, how should startups use data and analytics to inform sales team? More tangible metric because framework don't sell with. Yeah, so I agree. Framework may not. 1 second. Framework. So each of these activities are for a certain set of employees in your company. But if you're looking at from a framework perspective, it does. How are you able to communicate with the employees is very important. And am I? So I think from a startup perspective, when we were when we had started and building a Via's enterprise channel, we would had to share a lot of these customer data, the kind of trend that we used to see in terms of booking. We were able to identify that what we were focusing initially was more on SMEs, for example, but then we were seeing that there is a need coming in from a needs coming in from a smaller companies, but more from a medium and large enterprises. We were able to make those shift basis the data that we were seeing, the interaction that were happening, the visits that were footfall that were happening on the website or on the site that we had built up, the interest, the incoming leads that were coming in. We could see a lot of large companies also looking at solution which was more faster, predictable, and easy to manage. So you had to take it to the employer, to the sales team, and tell this set of customers or this set of companies are something that you should be focusing on. If I have to look at from my employee transportation point of view, when I was really involved in market like South Africa or Southeast Asia, we were able to identify what kind of challenges these markets were having by activity that on ground we could identify. When we were creating a sales team to address to that, we were able to show all of these data and take it forward with the kind of a matrix that we had of showing which are the target companies, what segment that they come in, what is the employee strength, number of vehicles that they were using, for example, or how many logins and logouts were happening. You had to take those informations to the employees for them to for you to set up a clear expectation in their mind in terms of what is your solution really going to address that, and then make them prepared to face those questions or answers. For any insight on B2B sales for India to the world, US, of course, you need to look at, there are a lot of companies today, including I've been part of a company which was taking solution from, which was a made in India product, but today it's globally being used. It's about identifying what are those challenges. Now, for example, a space booking solution really picked up during the pandemic, and it was one of the solutions that could go out of India to the world. And then what it needed was to identify, find out, do those promotion through Gartner or various tools that is available or various platform that is available, through which you could reach out to the market, reach out globally, and ensure that you were able to create those interests, create those impact. Was it meeting the customer requirement? Was it the challenge that you are able to address? And then get those leads coming in. We used to see a lot of leads coming in across from the Latin America, from the US, from the Europe market for need, which was to do with more of space booking for, especially during the pandemic. And after the pandemic also, we saw that trend really picking up, because when the companies realize that the work from home is a possibility now, and we may not need the real estate in the manner that they were using it earlier, it was important for them to look at how do I optimize that space. And for that, they needed a solution where the employees could book their seats and come. But how do you really communicate across into the market was something that we really addressed through tying up with various uh, uh, bodies like Gartner, and also doing a lot of media promotions or social media promotions, I would say. We also used to participate in a lot of international events as well, both in terms of webinar and the markets open, we could go locally and do things around. So from a sales or from a strategy point of view, you'll have to make those efforts to reach out. But again, depends on what's the kind of funding that you're currently having, and how are you really able to take it to the market, and what is your immediate goals and long term goals. basis that you'll have to plan your initiatives to, campaigns across to take it forward. Okay. So this is something that I was talking about. Is first is stick to the core, because a lot of companies, when they get success in certain areas, um, they then try to start doing I would say venture into other areas, and sometimes you just fall off. So it's very important to stick to the core. What is your USP, and sticking to that, and how do you evolve around that core is extremely important. So if you are helping you in terms of let's say a booking platform. On that booking platform, what else you can do? But the core is that your employees, customers are coming onto the site, they're logging in, there is a single sign-on that you have provided. If it is a corporate travel platform, or if it is a just a travel platform, anything to do with travel, it can be travel goodies or things around, but evolve around the core. The core is your booking engine. The core is about travel that you are in, and then you are building things around which really addresses that point. Redefine the service and customer experience. That's again very important as to how your customer journey is going to be, and how do you really hold their attention. If there are entry barriers, some do not have, some have it by design, because they do not want everybody and anybody to come in. So identify that, address those, and then ensure that you are sticking on to it. Your internal communication, both internally with your team, and delegating the role among the sales and the marketing, is extremely important as to who is going to look at what. There are companies who would probably have a strategic account management team. There would be companies that would have a regional account management team, and there will be a very, very clear agenda for each of those teams. So delegate and make things work. You cannot do everything alone. So so that's important, that what is that communication that you're doing, which is mobilizing your employees and delegating things. Use your social media, website, case studies, networking, communication. Networking plays a critical role in B2B business, whether it is online or offline. You need to ensure that you are able to hold your customer attention, and you are working toward making it, and the discipline that is required. Some of the quick facts that I wanted to bring out here are that no one size fits all. Every customer is different. I haven't, in my so many years of sales experience, haven't come across people with a similar taste, or they wanted the same thing. So everything, whether it is a SaaS solution, or whether it's a hotel sales, or whether it was travel, the expectations were always very different from customer to customer. So there's nothing you can say that this is a cup and this is how the cup should go. Maybe not. They may want a yellow color cup. They may want something else written on it. So no one size fits all. The sales process cannot be driven by traditional paralysis. A lot of us believe that what worked 5 years back is something that we should be doing it, but it has to evolve consistently. It cannot be affected by a tradition and you think that this is how it worked. It will not work in that manner. You have to keep looking at your market. You need to know the trend that is in the market, how things are evolving, how is your preference of the customers changing because of social media. A lot you would see now again, for example, in terms of fashion, I see a lot of baggy tradition coming back, which is not from slim, it is going back to baggy. So things are changing, and one has to keep looking at that. So don't be a victim of traditional paralysis. That is what I would say. Team planning is very important, but please don't create an army of people. Find solution experts and problem solver, people who can communicate, interact, engage with your customers, explain them, understand, identify the challenges and problems, and then able to address it. Keep it to your product base. If it's your product is an X solution, then get people around who can bring in a diversity also, but not something which is completely anti to that whole product. So somebody is selling, for example, is into real estate business, and then you bring into, let's say, a software solution sale, may not be the same experience, may not be the same thing. So keep it product based. It helps to, pass on the information and ensuring that they are quickly able to reach out in the market. IT products, SaaS sales and solution sales are quite different from hardware sales or service sales. And this is, I'm making this statement purely from the experience that I have had, and how I am seeing even in the current environment where I am currently working. We are doing a lot of EV sales, but EV sales is very different from a SaaS sales solution. So these are some of the facts that I have experienced, and I feel that and I felt important to bring it up out here. Also, for leaders in business and life, the thoughts of having more leaders in your business space should be powerfully motivating. This is something that I believe. If you're not aligned to the market, and if you're not really being offensive and taking a leap ahead, you will be left out of the game. So keep your eyes and ears to the market, hear the ground realities, know what is happening around, and ensure that you are able to make those impact to the customer, and stay relevant, stay afloat. Okay. Any more questions that has come up? Okay, what do you mean? Don't create an army. I mean, if you're in you need to do your team planning very, very judiciously. I remember when we used to do hotel sales some around 15-20 years back, we would have people hired basis region. So if it's Bangalore, we look at people handling only electronicity, only ITPL, or only CBD area. Today, it's evolved. Today, a lot of the balance of digital sales has to be there, a balance of communication, and but don't if you are used to selling, let's say, in a credit card company, or if you are and you think that is a model that will work, that may not work for a SaaS solution company, because you need people who understand your product, and then and you may have a very limited market for it. Not everybody is your customer, so you need to identify your market size, your customer size, and then look at what is it really you need, how many people really need to be in the market. There are companies who have prospered very well with just 2 or 3 people in their team, and there are companies who have prospered very well having 100 people also may not have helped them to really prosper. But so that mix and balance, you will get it when you are into that business, and you will be able to judge it very well for yourself. But the focus should not be that I need to just hire as many people as possible and bombard the market, and then that will make an impact. No, that may not make an impact. It has failed us quite many times in the past. Today, it is a mix of marketing initiative, it is a mix of digital promotion that you're doing, online sales that is happening. The employees who are going out in the market are more as a consultant and less as a sales guy. Because you need to understand the problem, especially when you're in a solution selling, to understand the problem and then consult them and take it forward. So that's my take on that. Any other questions anybody wants to have? So good. So this is my credentials. Please feel free to reach out in case you have any questions. Whether you want to reach out to me, you want to get some more frameworks, or you want to know some more, fine points of sales or strategy, I'll be happy to answer to them. Please feel free to reach out. But I also read this book, Art of War, pretty much very closely. And I find this one line to be very, very interesting for me. Whatever is flexible and flowing will tend to grow. Whatever is rigid and blocked will wither and die. And I think that has been a part of my journey so far. I have always found myself taking those risks and not being in a comfort zone that made me comfortable in the past. And I have tried different industries to be part of, which has helped me to, redefine myself as well and grow overall across working in any market today, whether it's in India or abroad. I've been able to take that forward. So don't be rigid. Don't keep yourself blocked with the thought that what you're doing is the only way. There will be other ways. Keep your eyes on it. Know what is moving and take it forward accordingly. Yeah, Elson, thank you so much. I think a lot of monologue, but that's the sad part of being on a virtual session.
Yep. But I think a couple of questions that did come were quite insightful, and
I know.
especially I like the last few slides where mentioned the way out is in. And I was looking at your pictures where I saw that you were also an avid traveler. So beyond just the presentation, I also realized that I got a little bit of your personal life also during this presentation.
Yes.
And that actually then it kind of hit me that your space is also in travel and you used to work there. So it's a part of your core essentially. So it was like practicing what you preach. So yeah, I enjoyed the session thoroughly. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. So we're bang on time at 1 o'clock. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer. You have my email ID. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Should you like to do that? Happy to interact more and doing more sessions like this with you, Elson. Thank you so much.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I've dropped Manish's email and LinkedIn on the chat. So feel free to connect with them. And thank you all for joining another session. Stay tuned for more announcements. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you so much. Thank you.